Mr. Shaun Donovan.
Good morning. It's great to see you all. Good morning. And thank you, Wynn, for that very kind introduction. That was a very interesting night that you described that I can't tell you too much about because I'd have to kill you if I did. But I will hopefully someday be able to tell my grandchildren about it. And let me say not only thank you to Wynn, but also to Larry Minix, who for more than 35 years has been a leader in this field that we all care deeply about. Larry, thank you for the remarkable leadership that you've provided, and thank you for the incredible leadership that means so much to everyone in this room. Larry, thank you. It is so wonderful to be with so many men and women who serve our nation's seniors. Wherever you work, at nonprofit aging services, in private homes, nursing homes, and assisted living facilities all across the country, you are the ones who ensure that every senior in this country has the housing they need to live with the dignity that they deserve. And I want to thank each and every one of you for the work that you do personally in your communities each and every day. To understand the impact you have had and how far we've come, you have to understand the deplorable conditions our elderly, even those with moderate incomes, were living in only a half-century ago. Then, seniors were left to fend for themselves, with virtually no supportive services that would allow them to live independently. Then, there was no such thing as a continuum of housing choices for seniors or support from government to help them through the aging process. Simply put, the right of every senior to a safe, affordable home after a lifetime of hard work and paying taxes was not a priority for the federal government. But with the National Housing Act, that began to change. Since that time, we've produced 400,000 units of permanent supportive housing for the elderly and 30,000 units for people with disabilities. I'm proud to say today that HUD provides housing to over 1 million of our nation's seniors. Of course, that commitment begins with the Section 202 program, which has helped dramatically change the housing landscape for our nation's seniors. By engaging the private sector and the nonprofit and faith-based communities to produce and preserve affordable rental housing for our seniors, the Section 202 program has provided thousands of seniors the opportunity to live independently with dignity. Today, Section 202 serves 130,000 older Americans. But equally remarkable, and something few people realize, is that HUD's other programs not only serve seniors, they actually serve more seniors. Indeed, project-based Section 8 alone serves 430,000 seniors, and public housing serves over 325,000 more. So let there be no doubt that HUD's commitment to housing our nation's seniors extends through all of our programs. And today, I'd like to talk to you about what we need to do to keep that commitment in the 21st century. Because as important as our work together has been these last several decades, it's about to become even more important. Around HUD, I'm known as a numbers guy, and when it comes to the baby boom generation, the numbers don't lie. In 20 years, more than 70 million Americans will have reached retirement age. By 2040, our senior population will have doubled. That means more demand for home and community-based services, more demand for transportation, and more demand for buildings and homes that are accessible. But even today, before we get to those numbers that lie ahead, we face serious challenges, with our immediate housing needs having grown in the wake of this terrible economic crisis that we've faced. HUD just reported the largest increase in our worst-case housing needs in the survey's history for the time between 2007 and 2009. At the same time, we have a public housing system that is losing 10,000 units every year. That means by the time I finish speaking to you today, we will have lost another unit. These challenges take place in the context of a very difficult fiscal situation. President Obama has made clear that we can't build the future on a mountain of debt. That's why he just forged a bipartisan budget deal for the current fiscal year that invests in our future while making the largest annual spending cut in our history. Given the tough choices and difficult cuts that had to be made, many of HUD's rental assistance priorities were protected in this budget. In fact, we were able to include at least $100 million of new funding for new construction for Section 202. While that may not be what we all would have liked, it is a significant victory and one that allows us to go into the discussion about the 2012 budget with at least some momentum. And I want to thank each and every one of you for the hard work and the progress that we've made reforming this program, which I want to come back and talk about in just a moment. But I want to recognize you because without your fighting, without your voice, we would not have even gotten that far in the budget that was just announced. With our 2012 budget, we've begun to lay out a comprehensive strategy to reform and renovate rental housing based on feedback we heard from you. The singular focus of this agenda in 2012 is to strengthen our public and assisted housing stocks for the future. To make this possible, we're pursuing new authority where it's needed and maximizing the use of existing authorities. Some of the new authorities we're seeking include launching a rental assistance demonstration to preserve 255,000 homes supported by our public housing and our so-called orphan programs. For those of you who speak HUD, whether we're talking about the Rent Sup or the RAP programs, Section 8 Mod Rehab, Larry and I were just reminiscing about the alphabet soup of HUD programs that we have. But you know that all of these key programs, which too often today have no way of being preserved, no way of extending their rental assistance, that needs to be a top priority, and it is in our 2012 budget. This demonstration is just one piece of the strategy, however, and we want to work with you to shape it and the rest of the discussion we've started to have with Congress. We're also working with Treasury and USDA to enhance the low-income housing tax credit, which was responsible for about half of all multifamily production in this country during the 1990s. In our budget, we've made a basis boost proposal to increase the tax credits available to preserve federally assisted housing, and which would allow for income averaging, which will be especially helpful for tax credit properties in regions with high rents and in rural areas. The tax credit reminds us why we need to continue strengthening the 202 program for the future, which we began doing in our 2011 budget when we called for temporarily suspending funding for new construction while we worked to reform the program. Now, I know that wasn't a popular decision, but 7 times as many units for the elderly and disabled are produced under the tax credit than under 202 and 811. And I knew from my personal experience when I was housing commissioner in New York City, when I was working at a nonprofit to try to create affordable housing, and what you all knew is that it had become far too complicated to get Section 202 and 811 housing built. Too many times, I saw more sources of funds being used to build those developments than units there were in the property. And I had perhaps the most sophisticated group of senior housing teams inside local government when I was commissioner in New York City. They could do anything. And we helped to create 3 of the first mixed finance 202s in the country. But when I went back to my team, when we'd finally closed those deals, they said to me, "Never make me do this again. It is just too hard." So we should be celebrating, and we did celebrate when the Section 202 reform bill that we worked so hard together to get passed was signed by the President into law last December. It is so important. That bill made critical changes to the program so that 202 developments can leverage private capital to build and preserve more units while making the program more sustainable over the long haul. It was these reforms, combined with the important progress made by our Deputy Assistant Secretary for Multifamily, Carol Galante, who's just fantastic, that allowed us to request almost $400 million for new construction of 202 in our 2012 budget. That will not only help us to build, but also to rehabilitate and preserve over 2,800 units. These reforms include prioritizing developments that leverage other sources of financing, such as the low-income housing tax credit, new readiness criteria for projects that are farther along and can house seniors faster, and a new way of targeting funds at a scale that makes better sense for owners and managers over the long term. All told, our proposed 2012 budget serves over 4.5 million families in our core rental assistance programs, 86,000 more than we were able to serve in 2010. And it also proposes to capitalize for the first time ever the Affordable Housing Trust Fund for new affordable housing construction, a commitment that the Obama administration reaffirmed in our housing finance proposal that we released earlier this year. Obviously, we will again need to find common ground on a common sense budget, as the President said. But we cannot, as he said in our State of the Union address, we cannot balance our budget on the backs of our most vulnerable citizens. And it can't be something that we use as cover to do away with things that we dislike politically. That's why, for all these issues, we need you to make your voices heard. We need you to speak up. We need the country to understand what these homes mean to their parents and their grandparents. And I know that I can rely on you in this tough fight we have ahead of us on the 2012 budget. Of course, redesigning these programs isn't just about preserving and building more affordable housing. It's also about ensuring that housing better meets the needs of seniors and is the platform for delivering the supportive services frail, elderly, and disabled households need. That's precisely why demand for our Section 232 financing program has grown exponentially over the last 2 years, providing critical financing for assisted living facilities and nursing homes across the country. But you and I both know, with the needs so great and our fiscal challenges growing every day, we need to find new ways of cost-effectively serving seniors. And here, Health and Human Services Secretary Sebelius has been just a remarkable partner. With Fred Karnas taking the lead for us at HUD, our agencies are working together to compare data related to seniors living in HUD housing with data of seniors receiving Medicaid benefits, so that we can truly understand who receives services and how we can improve access to them. Our two agencies are also exploring the cost savings of connecting affordable housing and home and community-based services in a way that not only cost effective, but also ensures elderly people are getting the support they need to live in their communities.